Hello there, I'm Robot NI30. Let's take a look at Voice Designer, the cool plugin to design robot and creature voices.
This can be your go-to
integrated plugin for any sci-fi or fantasy
project.
Awesome. Okay, welcome. I'm Lee Riley. And welcome to, well, that was my buddy NI30 there, which is appropriately Nuendo in 30, right? So welcome to the series Nuendo in 30. In this episode, we're going to look at some of the integrated features and how I approach sound design for various media. Okay, so we saw NI30. And that was my voice, right? And all I've done is run that through a certain plugin. You may have guessed what it is, but I'm going to go into that in some detail. Right. So let's have a look. Let's mute that because we're done with that one. Let's go to my voice designer here. And there we go. I'm going to bring up the plugin. Cool. We don't need that for the second. Right. There we go. Let's take a look at this. So this was the plugin that I was using. This is called Voice Designer. And let's take a look at what it can do. Take it away, Lee.
Voice Designer is an effects plugin to make voices very artificial or very robot-like. Vocoder, pitch follow, and morphing technologies are used. The following parameters are available.
Detune
changes pitch of input signal. Formant
changes timbre
and throat variations of the human voice. Preserve allows pitch shifting with formant preservation. Robot creates a robotic sounding voice from normal speech. Whisper 0% classic robotic effect. 100% whispering noisy voice. Effects adds a flanging delay effect to a sound. Morph activates morphing. The input sound will be processed using characteristics of another signal. You can use white noise, pink noise, rectangle, or a sawtooth waveform for the generator. Activate sidechain for signals coming from a different track. There are two different morphing modes. Voice Designer's morphing mode B creates more vocoder-like results.
There you go. Pretty impressive, right? So a lot of different parameters in there, lots of different things you can do with it. I've been experimenting with this for a while now, and it does everything you need to do. So I do a lot of coding stuff with keyboards, and I experiment with all kinds of stuff, and then this seems to do really, really well. And of course, every single parameter is automatable. Right, so every single thing that you have can be set up and changed, and it's writable, it's readable, it's everything you need it to be. Now, of course, this, for example, just to give you an idea.
Detune
changes pitch of input signal.
Right, so as it's automatable, right, I can go in there and change this, because we talked about automation earlier. Right, we can just go in and change certain elements of it.
Changes pitch of input signal.
Formant. Right. So there you go. So everything is automatable. So that's fantastic to use, right? So we've talked about something to do with voices and voice manipulation. That, of course, was my voice. It is sidechainable as well. When we talk about sidechain, that allows you to run a separate input, which I was using some screams and some monster roars and sci-fi tones just to give that the signal. And of course, there is a percentage as well, which allows you to how much of the sidechain and how much of the dry signal versus how much of the wet signal, right? Any kind of plugin will give you a dry-wet ratio. And that's, of course, all automatable. Awesome. So this is all dialogue. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of how I would design something here. Once we've talked about that, let me go to this guy. All right, I'm going to close this one. And here is a troll, right? Basically a walking troll, minding its own business, and using Voice Designer, of course. We've got some breaths in there, right? So let's take a look at what we've got so far. Okay, so this guy, heavy breathing, right? So he's coming up like this, coming straight up to the camera, and going over the top of us, right? So that is just the breath. So we've already explained how we can do voice design, right? So we're missing something, right? Well, this guy's not petite. He's going to need some help in the footstep department. So there's many ways of working with this, right? We're going to split this up into segments. So the first thing I would do is, well, okay, let's search some libraries and but make it our own, right? So I'm thinking, well, what am I looking at? I'm looking at something that's supposed to be heavy. Now, if we had little time on this, I would be thinking, well, okay, I'm just going to go with one layer, right? And that's it. But the thing is, you know me, I'm not going to go one layer. So to start with, though, what I want to do is, if I'm going to work fast on this, yes, I'm going to go back to my markers again. You know, I always go back to those, but this time I'm going to be dealing with positional markers and not cycle markers. What I'm going to do is actually mark the footstep. So if I was doing multi-layered kind of stuff here, I could do this really, really quickly. Right, so let's take a look. So let's scroll across. In fact, what I could do is use my plus and minus, right? I've got this nudge cursor set up, whereas I'm going to go across and search for the footstep as it goes down. Right. Well, is it following the breath? Not necessarily, right? So the breath could be a little labored, right? But now that I've found that, I have a key command where as I hit enter, and that will physically place that marker. So I'm going to go up to the next one, foot down. Is that foot down there? Yes. Foot down. Cool. Enter. I'm going to go along. Enter. We can move that another frame, right? I can use another quick key for that, command for that, but foot down. You see the shin and the knees extending, right? So we've got foot down there, enter. So knowing the mechanics of movement, is going to help you with this, right? And after all, this isn't real, right? We're creating something from nothing, from an animation. So that's extending. There we go. Cool. Next one, frame by frame. Boom. I'm going to go here. Excellent. And then the final one, which is kind of off camera, that should work right around there, just for this purposes. So I've got 8 to cut in. All right. So what I want to do here, I want to use some kind of a low frequency sound, right? Because this guy's pretty heavy, right? Now I've gone out and I found this, and I'm like, well, okay, a hockey board, right? Something being hit against the hockey board. Okay, great. I'm going to copy this or drag this over. I'm going to option drag this over. Now, the eagle-eyed viewers out there are going to see that, well, that doesn't line up, Lee, right? Well, of course, right? We have to edit this, right? This is what we're going to do. So there's plenty of ways I can edit this. One way I'm going to do is detect silence, right? So I can use detect silence, which I've used a key command of Shift D. Okay, So Shift D brings up my detect silence window. I think I talked about this a little while ago with dialogue, the new dialogue detection that was in 12. And without going into it, it is customizable from open and close thresholds with the green and red. And then we can hold the time open and close, etc., right? What this does, it selects the audio. I don't have to be perfect. I can edit this, but I want it to be, something quicker than just going in and editing. So I've hit apply. Okay. So we know this is going to be off, right? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to go into 8. So I'm going to drag this over. Right, I'm going to zoom in a bit more. What I want to do is line it up with the markers I just made. That's the whole point. Now, they may not be cut right to where the transient starts, so we can finagle that a little bit, right? So how do I snap the beginning of my clip? Well, on a Mac, that's going to be Command. On a PC, I believe that would be Control. That's the way I've set it up. There we go. So that's going to snap that to there. I'm going to go to 2, snap that to this. I'm going to use the third one. There we go. Now, for the fourth one, let's use the second one here. So if I click on this with Command, it's going to jump. I want to make a copy of that. So it's going to be Command Option, right? And I'm going to use this one. So go to 5, go ahead and click that. 6, I'm going to use this one here. 7, well, maybe 8, that one. And then for 7, let's go ahead and use the first one again. Oops. That was the end of it, wasn't it? Yeah, which was Command Control. Right. Oops. Something always happens live, doesn't it? There we go. Now, if I listen to this, it's not going to be too good. That wasn't too bad, right? But it could be edited, right? And this is just one layer. So the best thing for me to do is select this, right? Once I've selected all of those, it's real easy to manipulate and edit this and drag this out, right? Go to the bottom right corner and I can kind of drag that out. I don't want it to go too far because I'm getting into and cutting off those sounds. Let's take a listen to that. Well, okay. Well, what I should have done is actually line this up a little better. All right. I'm going to go back here like so. That wasn't actually too bad, was it? Straight off the bat. But I'm going to kind of go in there and make sure the transients are kind of lining up a little bit. I didn't do that. There we go. There. Last one is here to there, right? I can throw some fades in here. I can get rid of that guy there. I forgot about that guy. So select all of them. What I could do here is just grab the top end of each clip, and I'm going to fade that out so we don't get any pops or clicks, and do a little fade at the beginning, just ever so tiny. Okay, great, right? But, that's a quick fix. It works. But let's say it was me. I want to layer this. Now, what is the advantage of layering sounds? Well, the advantage of layering sounds is the fact that you can break the monotony, right? If something's, it's going to just be monotonous. I mean, if I went in there, they're all separate recordings of the same thing. But, what the thing I could do is, like, for example, select that clip. And remember that each clip, you can go in and easily transpose pitch shift, right? Real easy by clicking on the top there, and I can just put +1, which is like a semitone up, and go into this one and bring this like a semitone down, right? I can do this. I can do that and make it less monotonous and make it a little bit more interesting. But you know what? Layers will do this for me. Now, of course, I've done this earlier. Let me hide my video here a second and go look around my camera. I put it too far over. As if by magic. There we go. I created these earlier. And this is my second layer. These are muted. My second layer is the surface, right? So now we're getting those hits, but we're adding a surface to it. So this is kind of like an impact, a rock impact. I can play with this. And not only that, because it's separate layers, we can determine how loud we want each layer. We've got a lot more options now, right? Let's bring our little guy back. Now, that would make sense, wouldn't it? The closer we got, the more crispy, the more of that rock you can hear, right? The rocks itself. So I can obviously go in and just grab and I use my wheel, right, on my mouse here, and then just kind of bring this up a little bit, and I can kind of increase incrementally each clip. But you've probably noticed that there's some automation down there, right? Volume automation, which is cool. That's what we want, right? Because the closer we get, the louder it's going to get. So now I can add a little bit more of a nice layer to it. Right, but I'm not 100% satisfied with that. I want to do one more layer, right? So I'm going to do a layer a different way. Okay, I'm going to play the layer in because I want to use a sampler track. Okay, what it's missing is that weight, right? So I want a little bit of the low end. I've got to move my little table here because I kind of moved my chair over here. Anyway, I want that weight to it. So eagle-eyed viewers will see that I have a kick here, and me being slightly musical, of course. That's some nice low end, right? It's a kick. So as it happens, I can use any clip. I can double click that. I can just drag it into a sampler track. But if I create a key command, which I have done, of course, you know me, my key command is, by the way, commands here, I can just go straight to it. I've set a key command for a key command, and that's K, right? If I typed in Shift Control S, what that's doing is I can assign that to basically bring up another sampler track, right? But what I've done is I've already done this, right? I've done this. If I record on this, let me see, double check. I've got a keyboard in front of me, right? So I'm going to bring this up. There's that kick. Now, I've talked about the sampler track before, right? And how handy this thing is. So, excuse me, now I can the beautiful thing about this is it's naturally, of course I'm not going to play it like that, right? I'm going to be random about it. I can actually change pitch ever so slightly, and there's my slight non-monotonous feeling, right? That I've added to this. And I could bring this in and out by volume. Now, if I click on this, it's quickly, or I can hold that in, and it's going to bring the reverb out, right? So let's go back here, and you know what we're going to do? I'm going to have a little practice run here to make sure that I'm going to go in and recreate the footsteps. Okay, it's like I almost did it before, right? So let's go ahead and record it, right? Fantastic. Now, of course, with it being MIDI notes, there's nothing real to quantize it to. Well, actually, you could set up a quantize. That's a different story. Anyway, these are MIDI notes, right? I can move these around. I can nudge them. I can do whatever it is. I can leave it there till I'm ready to record it, and I can bounce that as the kick drum, right? And now I've got it as an audio track. I can still do it here and change it in relation to everything else. Some nice weight to it. There you go. Awesome. Okay, I'm looking up. Thanks. I was wondering if there's any way to use different pre-configured presets so I don't have to do everything manually for each project. Yeah, that is... oh boy. Yeah. This is our Project Logical Editor. Ask her. That is Project Logical Editor. Please make a comment. Say, hey, Lee, can you talk about that? Actually, Phil Pendlebury was talking about that recently, actually, his live stream on Monday, if you want to check that out. But I'll be more than happy to kind of look at that. You know, this is one way you can physically set up a template, right? A project template, technically. If you get everything that you want in that session, and now you can set all your tracks there. You can set all of your video, everything you want, your frame rates, everything, and save that as a template. And you can bring that up when you go to new project. That's what I do all the time. If I go to new project, I have all these template settings there. Does that kind of answer your question there? I'm going to move that. It's all right. Derailing. I'll allow it this time. You know, hey, it wasn't derailing that much. But anyway, it's good to have a question. Cool. Right, so that at least is allowing us to add 3 layers. Now I can kind of fine-tune that. And also, what we could do is obviously add more reverb on Ascend to be for the distant part, and then it gets less reverb and less reverb as it comes closer to us, right? Excellent. Cool. I'm going to move this for a second. Now, what are we going to talk about next, Lee? We've talked about some layers. We're going to talk about another monster. Why not? Let me go to my episode layout. And this guy, yes. I'm going to do a little bit of... okay, what I want to do is I want to talk about this guy right here. Awesome. Let's get him out of the way. Make sure you can see it, right? Now, this is I did a breath here originally, right? It didn't really work, I don't think. Whatever. So I recorded this guy, Nazul. I am Nazul kind of thing. So I'm thinking, well, okay. I'm going to play this back. You know, I made sure I was giving him my best radio voice, right? I am Nazul. Well, okay, great. Fantastic. I'm not going to win any Oscars for that, right? But, or Emmys or whatever, Grammys or whatever you want to call them. Golden Globes. So, yeah. So at least I've done that in time, because what I did was I recorded it, and I'm using audio warp, right? And that allows me to move things in time, right? We've talked about that in ADR previously. So great. We'll come back to that in a second. We've talked about Voice Designer, but I want to talk about a different pitch plugin. Okay. Yes, we need some help here. We need him to be scary. He's a scary looking dude, right? So we're going to have to make him a bit scarier than what he is, realistically. So let's talk about Pitch Driver. It's right behind my camera. So if I play this,
I am Nazezul.
of course, it helps if I switch it on, right? There we go. I activated it.
I am Nazezul.
Excellent. Right. So using pitch, but what does it do for us? Right. Well, detune, of course, is going to make this even deeper. That's not really legible, is it? Yeah.
I am Naz.
That's more or less what it was before, because it's only 5%. I can go right up here.
I am Nazezul.
Okay, right. That kind of works as well, but I'd rather it has to be deeper, right?
I am Nazezul.
If I want a bit of my voice blended in with it, now I can mess with the mix. If I click on this mix button right here, I'm blending my voice into it.
I am Nazezul.
Okay, that works, right? Cool. Now, one layer, I'm not feeling it, right? I need this to be at least 2 layers. If any of you worked with vocals out there, or any kind of situation where you have backing singers or doubling up vocals, of course, it's always better, right? So this is no different. What I'm doing here is going to unmute this, and now I want to, eagle-eye viewers out there will notice that I kind of messed up and I didn't follow carefully, right? I've lined up the beginning. I'm going to talk about another couple of plugins here for this example. But first off, I want to go in there. I want to double click this. And my audio warp, free warp, is on. Sorry, I have to lean around the camera. I have it in an awkward place today. Now, I'm going to look at this. I'm going to make sure I can see this correctly. I'm going to move this in position. And this is the track I'm looking at. The start lines up really, really well. So I'm going to put a warp marker in there. Right, I want to take the second one, because you can see that the second one is not really, that's something I'd love to talk to Steinberg about, with which one has the focus for zooming in, right? That's my focus. I need this. I'm going to click on this guy, and I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to move it over, right? I'm going to move it over to here, so it kind of...
I'm not.
Right. Notice that it keeps snapping back. So I want to put this here.
I am.
Right, I want to put this here, and I press C. And C will change my sync point. Right, that's how I've got it set up. The sync point now starts right at the beginning, and that is following the grid. Well, it's following my spacebar. Sorry. So now this lines up. I want to see how this part here, which is here, does not line up with that one. So I'm going to grab that, put a warp marker in there, and kind of line it up with that one. So if I go up here,
I am Nazezul.
well, the Zool part is off, right? We can see that. Nazezul. maybe if I place one right here and kind of drag that over a bit. Let's see if that works. There we go.
I am Nazezul.
That works, right? Pat myself on the back. Excellent. I've done up my lining. Now, you're saying, Lee, why don't you just use, the audio alignment panel, which is behind my camera, behind my circle there, my face. Audio alignment, well, you have a source and whatever you want to, line up, right? Well, you could do that, but I just don't want it to be super, super accurate. I want it to be slightly off. A little imperfection isn't too bad. And plus it adds a little something to it. Now, let's talk about a couple more plugins, and I'm going to jump in to our final scene. Right, go to the track here. And I'm going to manipulate my second voice. I'm going to mute that a second. I'm going to bring up a ring modulator. Now, that ring modulator has also got a mix to it. So if I bring that down to 0.
I am not.
Okay, that's my natural voice.
I am Nazezul.
Okay, I'm going to switch it on. It actually helps.
I am Nazezul.
Okay, that's a bit robotic, but it kind of works. It makes it a little nasally.
I am Nazezul.
Makes it very sci-fi, right? But it still doesn't. It's losing something. It needs something a little bit low, right? And some bass to it. So for you bass players out there and guitar players, you probably already know an Octaver or an Octaver. I'm going to switch that one on this time. I'm getting the hang of it. So now that allows you to split and run multiple octaves.
I am Nazezul.
Now I don't want the direct.
I am Nazezul.
Okay, I can actually play with the amount ratios between each one, and I like that. And let's put it together with the pitch driver.
I am Nazezul.
Sweet. Scary creature. There we go. Brilliant. Okay. Lastly, but not leastly. Okay. I'm going to go to my battle scene. We've dealt with all kinds of strange creatures and dialogue. What I want to deal with now is a little helicopter fight. Our damsel in distress is flying her machine, and she's being chased by another machine. So let's take a look at it first. Okay, right. So now this is something a little bit different. Now, layers again, right? Layers are going to help us. And not only layers, we have some perspective changes, right? So we have outside, right? As the helicopter speeds up and takes off and gets out of the way, we think there's escaping. Comes past the camera, but not really past the camera. As it's not, going from left to right. The camera's kind of following it, right? So then, out of the right shoulder here is our foe, right? Basically chasing in an attack helicopter, and then now we've got the interior perspective, and they've fired some laser bolts or whatever at the helicopter, and now we're getting a camera by, right? So as the camera by comes across, well, the thing is that we can use panning, which you probably heard already, right? Which helps, right? It gets this is a right to left movement. and then the helicopter's coming from the left and going more or less into the center. And you can see that there's some automation there, and I've added some panning in there for automation and some volume stuff. But what would make it really would sell it? Well, a natural phenomenon that we all hear is some of the distance over time, right? And that's either an ambulance or a fire truck or whatever it is, or a fire lorry, depends on where you're coming from, probably in Canada or England. I guess call them lorries up there, right? But they make this phenomenon. If you have a motorcycle go by, any kind of engine, it all depends on the distance relation to you, right? And as it passes you, it's a natural phenomenon of distance over time, and it's going to change pitch. And this is a Doppler effect, which, you know, all of these plugins that we've talked about comes with Nuendo, right? I've used the stock plugins to do all this stuff. So I've taken these two sounds and grouped them, put them in the group, and now I'm clicking on here and I'm going to use a Doppler. Now, let's have a look here. It's a bit awkward because I've got to go around this way. And I'm going to bring this Doppler up, right? And I'm in automatic mode right now. So what the automatic mode will do is you need to kind of tell it which position, and then it makes the calculation. Where do you want to start the pitch from, right? So we've got it coming across. So as it comes closer, then it's going to pitch slightly different, right? It's going to pitch and change, right? This is going to sell it completely because it's fake, right? This doesn't exist in real life. There wasn't a microphone recording it, or a pair of microphones recording it, or whatever, or ambisonic, or whatever. So we'll tell it where to start. So we'll move the cursor where we want it to start. We'll move the cursor where we want the transition, where it comes in and transitions, right? So I'll click on that button to do that. I've already done this, so that you can see some times in there. And now I'm going to go to, where is the listener? Well, the listener in this case is us. So it'll probably right where the transition is anyway, so you can click that. And then end. When do you want this whole thing to end? So you want to click where you want it to be, and you click end. This is a right to left movement, okay? The left-right distance is not really, we're not seeing it go right across, flat across the camera. The camera's kind of panning with it, right? So it doesn't really need to be a large percentage. Plus, the panorama is here. We've got like a 70-20 split. So we want, because it's really fast, we want most of the sound to be right to left, right? This right speaker. The pitch, that all depends on how drastic you want to change it. The transition area is, you'll notice that when I move that, that is changing the pitch change, where that transitional place is, and the depth is how far away the listener is. Now, because it's going right across our face, that'll be 0, right? Pure and simple. So as it comes across, that's it. So let me switch it on, right? I'm going to, actually, let's switch it off first and solo the helicopters here. Well, there's a volume change, a volume swell. It gets louder as it comes closer and moves, right? And it's panning just ever so slightly, but just doesn't sell it, right? So let's actually solo that with this working. It just has that little bit to it, right? That Doppler is working. It's just adding a little bit of a pitch change, which makes it a little bit more natural. And if we play it all together there. Okay, now I didn't add a Doppler on the attack helicopter, but we added some supplemental stuff here. Some jet engines just to give it a little bit of a kick as it got closer. But this guy, the reason why it's colored a different color here is because I want to talk about it real quick. It goes from right to left. Okay. I'm going to solo that. I'm going to bring that up. The Doppler is off. Well, that jumps, doesn't it? There's a drastic jump. So I'm thinking, well, okay, let's take a look at this pan, Lee. I can fix that. Right? Virgin territory there. We talked about that in a previous... can always talk about all this stuff again. I'm going to smooth that out a bit so that it's kind of doing this. Okay, awesome. All right, so that's my pan from right to left. Multiple passes of Doppler with the same. Oh, can you use... Okay, that's question. X Music Studios. Just want to move out my window here. Multiple passes of Doppler with the same instance of the plugin later. Yes, you can automate it, right? So any of the plugins can be automatable. So you could have one scene set up with the Doppler, right? You can have it set up one way. This is in manual at the moment, but it doesn't really matter. You can, use... You can use your control surface or whatever it is, right, for focus quick controls. And you can set all this stuff up to change. And you can set up your presets, right? So basically your presets, you can jump between your presets. So you can use the same Doppler plugin, right? And then keep changing. I think I answered that, right? Was it what you were asking? I think. Cool. I think so. I know there's a delay between us, but chime in I'll just say yes if I did, and no, I'll answer something else. Right. Anyway, let's bring out that Doppler. I've manually done this, whereas I've kind of used the same kind of parameters right to left, but I've changed the object position and I've changed the panorama, right? And it's ever so subtle as it goes by. There's a slight pitch change, which sells it, right? Completely sells it. There you go. Now, what's missing there is that the music, right? To provide tension and all that good stuff. But that's more or less sound designed for what you need. And of course, you can have more layers, but whatever. Anyway, we're getting up to 45 minutes, aren't we? So, without further ado, I guess that is it. I think I've answered the questions today, which was great. All right. Now, I definitely don't know how to answer that one. Anyway, might need a translator for that. Anyway, so what have we talked about today? We've talked about, let's recap. We've talked about our manipulating dialogue, right? Adding some creature effects, using different pitch programs, and then adding other plugins to manipulate that, and then taking some speech, changing that, using some time stretching, and then adding and using Doppler and running through automation and everything else, right? Cool. So, without further ado, I'd like to thank you for watching today. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully you've enjoyed the show. And keep subscribing. Comments down below, whatever you would like me to talk about, basically, and I'll see if I can throw that into the next episode. And that's it. I might talk a bit more about sound design. There's plenty of stuff to really talk about. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Have a good one.